Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 70 of On the Road with AutoTrader, where we make car stuff simple for Canadians. My name is Jodi, and I'm the editor-in-chief of AutoTrader.
And my name is Dan Alika, and I am AutoTrader's Road Test Editor.
Welcome back, everyone, from the holidays. We hope you feel rested and you got a lot of time to relax and hang out with your family and friends.
It's so weird because it's 2025, but I'm wearing the same clothes I was wearing in 2024.
You are a man of consistency.
That was a little, a little insider info for those of you watching on YouTube.
The listeners wouldn't have even known.
Nope.
I was thoughtful enough to do an outfit change.
Yeah, I wasn't.
So today we are going to be talking about the funniest and weirdest car names in history.
Yes.
And so this is something we laugh about all the time. And we also complain about car names all the time because current car names are very boring. They're very like alphanumeric, Infiniti QX80, Cadillac XT4. It's just a bunch of numbers and letters, which is so boring. It's not fun at all. Some of them are downright stupid, like the Toyota BZ4X.
Yes.
Some of those are capitalized and some of them are not, which drives me crazy.
Yeah. I mean, there's also like the Porsche Panamera Gran Turismo GTS, which stands for Gran Turismo Sport, right?
That's so
or Sport
silly.
Turismo, Gran Turismo Sport.
Yeah, that's so silly.
Yeah, it's so weird.
And a lot of cars are named after like places.
Yeah.
Like
what about the Subaru Solterra? That's the Sun Earth.
the Sun Earth.
Yeah, well, I guess the Sun Land. Anyway.
I mean, it's still better than BZ4X.
Yeah.
I hate it.
There's a name, there's a reason behind, and I can't
I know,
remember,
it's something
nor do I
about
really
like
care.
X for all-wheel drive, 4, I don't know. I don't even remember anymore.
It's so strange.
People have just resorted to calling it the busy forest.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah, I prefer that, honestly.
I just don't look, I liked it when it was simple, where it's like the Toyota CHR, right?
Yeah.
That acronym was Coupe High Rider, right? It's not great, but it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
a lot of them just don't make sense these days. So Chris and I were at a thrift store and we found a car kit from
Like
the
a model kit?
Yeah, like a model kit
Okay.
for a 1960s Thunderbird.
Okay.
And it had a little brochure inside, and it had a profile of the guy who designed it.
Okay.
Right, his name was Daryl Starbird, which is like the coolest name ever. Right?
Do you think he had anything to do with the Thunderbird name?
Oh, let me ponder that. Very smart. But in this pamphlet, they had a list of other cars he designed.
Okay.
And these were some of the other cars he
Okay.
designed. The Predicta,
Okay.
the Futurista, the Fantabula, and the Electra. All amazing names. Fantabula?
Yeah.
That's so cool
that's
and so retro, right? Like you can just picture what that looks like.
Yeah.
And then he also designed a Big Deuce. Which we should explain means something very different now than it did back then.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay, so back then it was slang for a 32 Ford coupe.
Yeah.
Deuce for 2.
yeah.
Yeah. And it also had 2 doors because
Yeah.
it was a coupe.
Yeah, it was a Deuce Coupe. Yeah.
There many songs have been written
Yeah.
about a Deuce
Little
coupe,
Deuce
right?
Coupe. You know what I got? Okay, you know what one isn't like, it's not weird because we grew so like accustomed to it, but I always thought was a little bit weird was the Chevrolet Cavalier. Because like a
Okay.
Cavalier was like a, like a
Like a rebel.
no, like a horse, like, somebody like a horseman, like you'd have a sword and you'd go into battle sort of thing. But it also like, if you were to say to someone, like, you've got a really cavalier attitude, it's like, you don't really care.
Yeah.
Like, what a name for a car. Like,
Yeah. I
The-
mean,
the Chevrolet, that's what it comes down to.
that's very true.
It's the Chevy, can't be bothered. Like,
I mean, one that always gave me the ick was Ford Probe.
yeah,
Like, what are you probing?
yeah. Don't want to know.
Just thought it was weird.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of other funny ones from the 1950s and 60s. So
Yeah.
I basically looked at like a huge long list of every single car by decade that came out, and I picked up the best ones.
Okay.
Because a lot of the ones we talk about later are more modern, like 2000s, 90s kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then the 50s and 60s, they had some really creative names, right? So here are some from that era. Humber Super Snipe.
Wow.
Really like aggressive, right?
Super
On the
snipe.
other side of the spectrum, the Astra Gnome.
Oh, that's
Cute,
kinda
right?
cute. Yeah, yeah.
Gut Broad Superior. That was German.
But there's, how like people say like, like for Ford, like found on road dead, like there's all those like, all I think of is like, that there was that like hot rodder slang, like saying back in the day of like chrome won't get you home. Like you could say the same, like gnome won't get you home. Like that's a like pretty disparaging, certain things they just like set you up for the easy ones. Like
gnome's a good one because it's so easy to rhyme too, right? King Midget.
Okay. I think there's been like a couple midget. Like
there
that
has
name
been,
used.
But I like this one because it was the King Midget, like the best of all the midgets, right? Nas Hall Thrift. I thought it was made perfectly for me because thrifting is my entire personality now. Chevrolet Task Force.
Oh, that's good.
Which I thought they thought of such fun names back then. Hillman Super Minx.
Yeah, the Super Minx. That's
I always
cool
thought
car.
A super minx, like a minx is funny because that would be slang for like a flirtatious woman, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you minx.
Yeah.
But this car was the minx. I thought it was really funny.
Yeah.
But we have a whole long list of them.
The one like we're gonna get into like the Japanese ones. Those ones are so like crazy.
And I think the reason why some of these are so crazy is because honestly, like English was not their first language. And I think a lot of these things might have been lost in translation.
Sure. But it's also, because it's like, okay, this idea that, English, like Western culture was, especially back in like the 80s and 90s in Japan, was like, idolized and
very
idealized.
Aspirational.
Right? Like, so it was like having these English names on cars in Japan that really like had no meaning. Not just like, I don't mean in Japan. I mean
anywhere
in the world. They just like, so some of them are very logical. Okay.
Yeah.
And one that I love is you had the Toyota Hi-Ace, which is literally just spelled Hiace, right? But the cool thing was Toyota took that and really like ran with it. So the ambulance version was called the Hi Medic. Right. And I just love that, like,
it's logical.
Yeah. And it just, so it was like that stood for, it was like you knew that HI, like that meant it was this van. And then it was like, it worked its way to like these different body styles and these different applications. That is one of those ones, like, it makes sense if you're saying it's the ace of the lineup, right? So there was no like weird. But looking at vans, in one of my favorites of all time is the Mazda Bongo, and in particular, the Bongo Friendy.
What made the Friendy the Friendy?
Because I think it was like a Westphalia style, like...
Oh, like a camper.
Yeah. So I don't know. But, and it's spelled like Friendee, I think. It's just weird.
It's really fun.
The Bongo is like the Bongo is the Hi-Ace, or was, it's slightly smaller, but it was like big, like Mazda in Japan, and I think like in Australia as well. The Bongo was like, there were conversion vans, and they were work vans, and they were passenger vans. But yeah, the Friendy became like this spin-off version of it.
I love that.
Yeah, the Bongo
Mazda
Friendy
had a bunch of good ones, actually. Yeah. This one, Mazda Scrum Buster. It's just so cute, and it makes no sense.
I don't know if I meant like those, those stupid jokes. Like, you guys know I'm a big Friends fan. I watch that show on repeat along with Seinfeld and The Office. And one of my favorite like dumb jokes is Ross is getting ready to play rugby. And so they're watching rugby on ESPN. And Joey's trying to give him some pointers because he's worried that he's just going to get like demolished out there. And he goes, so they're like scrumming in rugby, and Joey goes, okay, Ross, that's called a scrum. It's sort of like a huddle. And then Ross goes, and is a hum sort of like a scruddle? And it's just like, it's so stupid, but I have heard that line literally like dozens and dozens of times.
And it makes you laugh every time.
It makes me time. Yeah. Every time it gets me. So anyways.
Okay, here's another Mazda one. Mazda Titan Dump.
All right.
So this kind of goes back to what you're saying, because like dump means dump truck.
Yeah. It's also interesting, and I never thought about this before, and this, I'm sure we could go, into like the weird trademark laws around the world and the reason why cars are called different things in different markets. But think about it. So that was a Japanese market truck from Mazda that was called the Titan. What was Nissan's half-ton truck in North America called? It was the Titan because trademark law. So one of the interesting ones that's more recent is the Hyundai Casper, which is that cute little crossover that I've said before, and I'll say it now just in case. Jen McCarthy from Hyundai Canada, Steve Flamon, Don Romano, the president and CEO of Hyundai Canada, who should be listening to the show.
Give us the
Casper, man. But anyways, depending on the market around the world, it's got a different name. Anyway, but the Casper is a great little.
It's also a great name for a car.
Fantastic.
I think of the Ghost.
Yeah,
it makes me very happy.
If you bought it, I always advocate for people buying cars in fun colors.
Oh yeah.
If you bought a Casper and didn't get a white one, you're only doing yourself a disservice.
I'm also thinking of when Halloween comes, you put a sheet over it and put cut two holes where the headlights are.
It's the friendly ghost.
It's so cute.
Yeah. But anyways, the Casper.
Mitsubishi had a lot of really good ones.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is just the Mitsubishi lettuce.
The lettuce is so, that is one of those, I want to ask, what
was the intention?
Yeah. Or whoever approved it.
Yeah.
It's not so much about who came up with it, but who went, hey, I like this.
I bet it had something to do with it's a efficient car, so it's green. It's I don't know if I'm just making that up.
Maybe, Jodi, it's a grocery getter.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
It's a K car though.
Yeah.
It was sold up until 2011.
Remember when I would be in this same, I think those names I would come up with. Because remember I tried when we launched this show, I advocated really hard to call it AutoTrader, an AutoTrader podcast.
Yeah.
And you were like, nobody's going to like that. And a bunch of people around the office were like, it's kind of fun.
Because it came from you.
No, I just think it's a great
AutoTrader. It's fun. It's fun.
But it has to be the full AutoTrader and AutoTrader podcast.
It's a mouthful.
I loved it.
I mean, a lot of these names are mouthfuls. Yeah. So this is an all-time favorite. Isuzu Mysterious Utility Wizard.
It's mysterious and a wizard. Makes a lot of sense.
But it's got utility. Yeah,
I picture a wizard with a fanny pack, and that's where he keeps all his little crystals and stuff like that.
It's adorable.
Yeah.
Honda had a bunch of really fun ones. The Honda Today.
Yeah.
It was later replaced by the Honda Life.
Yeah.
And then it turned into the Honda Life Dunk.
Okay. Now, this is another, now on the subject of Honda and just again, with car names. And sometimes it's a matter of, we actually have a story on Auto Hebdo. And I think we did an English translation version of car names that had to change because they were French. But then actually in the Quebec market, that people are oh, that's either
it's a swear word
or a swear word or whatever. So sometimes that's the case, but Honda, so in North America, we had RIP, we had the Fit.
Right.
Which was a great little hatchback. But in Japan and the UK, for whatever reason, it was called the Honda Jazz. So, and I don't know why. Mm-hmm. There's other ones that aren't funny, they're just weird. Toyota had the Velfire.
What was that here?
What's that? No, we never got it.
Oh.
But I'm what? Why? What? That doesn't make sense. At least these ones, when you're the Scrum Buster, it's just a mashup of two English words. The Velfire, that's nothing.
That's just made up.
Yeah.
But I mean, it sounds kind of cool.
Yeah. What's another? Oh, you really like the Peugeot Bipper TP Outdoor?
What does it mean? Bipper TP Outdoor.
Yeah, it's
I just think it doesn't mean anything, and I think it's hilarious. It's so good. Oh, also the Mitsubishi Mirage Dingo Teddy Bear.
Yeah, that's so good.
What is that?
That's so good.
I just love that.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough to be a dingo. It had to be a Tingo teddy bear.
Yeah. We never, but we had very the Pontiac Aztec, right? Mm-hmm. The Dodge Neon, we just had words. It's funny if you actually went through trademarks, see what brands still hold trademarks on words. I can't, for example, I can't believe Subaru managed to get Ascent. Because keep in mind, that didn't launch until 2014. the fact that no other car company, trademarked Ascent for an SUV or some sort of off-roader, it makes so much sense.
They lucked out on that one.
Yeah.
I wonder what it's called in the Japanese market.
It doesn't exist.
Oh, that's right, because it's a for North America car.
It was built for North, and then they ended up. I remember Australia was really advocating to get it, but the hard thing was like to build it right-hand drive just for low volume. But I think you can now buy the Ascent in Australia. I could be wrong, but I feel like you can. So anyways, it's, but yeah, like that's the fascinating thing about vehicle names is like, how they get them, what they do to hold on to them. There's a reason. I was just talking about this with someone, like there's a reason why for all the years between, the recession and when Hummer as a brand was dissolved, as GM was battling through financial difficulties and this revival under GMC as the Hummer EV. So GM licensed the Hummer name and branding on products like cologne.
Right.
Right. And people are always like, that's so weird. Why would you put a car name on it? And it's just having something out there that you can keep the name in your portfolio. Because if you let that name go, especially with a company that's been dissolved, like the brand Hummer, somebody else can pick that up, that trademark, and use it for their own products and whatever. So having just something with the brand that General Motors is licensing that name to like that cologne probably smells awful and nobody buys it, but that's not the point. The point was just to preserve the trademark on the Hummer name so that GM could then relaunch it if it so chose.
That's smart. I never even thought about it that way. Speaking of Australia, though, the Purvis Eureka. It was like some sports car that they had.
Oh, man.
There's so many good ones.
What about the Great Wall Cool Bear?
Great Wall Cool Bear. Very, very cool. They also had, so this was a submission from Michael who emailed us.
Yeah.
The Great Wall Funky Cat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like Great Wall brands had like amazing names.
And Great Wall, as a Chinese car company, amazing name.
Genius. Yeah, like, very smart name.
That is so good.
Because now from the name, we know where it's from.
Exactly.
Right? Amazing branding.
Yeah. What about, that's another thing we can talk about. People may or may not know that Nissan wasn't always Nissan. It was originally Datsun.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was, for whatever reason, it was just like when it was expanding into North America and it wasn't really taking off and like it wasn't catching on with people and focus groups and stuff. So they rebranded. But then back in maybe 2012 or so, or 2013, Nissan, and I think ended up kind of abandoning the plans, but had relaunched the Datsun brand in India as like a low cost.
Right, like a budget brand.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see the way that there's some reason why Toyota, so Akio Toyoda, who's still the chairman, he was the president and CEO of Toyota. His grandfather, was like founded it. And so it's been a family, brand, a family business, but their last name is spelled Toyoda, and the original brand name was spelled that way, but it had this weird, like in Japanese, like when it was in writing, it looked weird, and it was like there was some like kind of off, so that's why it was changed to Toyota with a TA at the end. Yeah.
See, a lot of people might not know that, but that's super cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of Nissan, they had a bunch of really good ones too. Nissan Renessa. So R''Nessa.
Again, what does that even mean?
I think it has something to do with the Renaissance something. Renessa, but not Vanessa. Renessa.
Oh, okay.
But I think automakers have to calm down with the random apostrophes.
Yeah.
It's too much.
But I would honestly, maybe not. I don't know if I would necessarily be like proud to be like, oh, I just bought a Renessa, but I would much rather see outrageous names than, like you said off the top, like numbers and letters and just like random, like I know it's easy. and you don't have to worry about the name being taken if you know, just call it a mashup of letters and numbers. But it's like, come on, bring back real car names.
I know, because they're so much more fun, and it says so much more about what the car is and what it can offer, right?
To the point we said about the Great Wall, think about the Nissan Pathfinder. If you had no idea what the Pathfinder was, you'd have a pretty good idea if I said to you, hey, Nissan Pathfinder. You'd go, well, that's got to be something rugged and cool.
Yeah, it says so much, right?
Yeah.
Or like even...
Land Cruiser, Toyota Land Cruiser.
Yeah, it's such a good name. You know, the Joy Long Super Long, you can probably picture it's a very long vehicle.
Double long in the name is weird to me.
Joy Long Super Long.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, that's like the Subaru Nubaru. Like you wouldn't, like, you know what I mean? Whoever named that is like clearly not a marketer.
Or what about the Huali Happy Messenger?
Okay, I like that.
A happy messenger. You can picture what it does and what it looks like.
I said there was one, my favorite one, and you were like, "Oh, it's on the list." Was the Tarpan Honker? Because
it's a Polish military vehicle.
Yeah. So those of you who don't know this, Jodi, this was going back, like this is reaching way back. Jodi was telling a story about somebody who like had just lost it with road rage. All because, as Jodi put it, I honked him. And I was like, wow, what? It really caught me off guard when you said like that's how you honked him. Like, because to me, it's like I honk at someone and you were just like, I honked him. So I thought when I saw this name, I was like, this is for Jodi.
It was made for me.
Yeah.
I'm a honker.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's so many good ones. Yeah. Oh, you said this one. Studebaker Dictator.
Yeah, that's a...
Who is that for? Like, what does this car do?
Yeah, that's a bold... It's just like... But then again, I mean, you've had like the president. That used to be a thing. And how could we forget Lincoln?
Gladiator.
You know? Yeah.
That's like a great name. Gladiator's a great name for a car.
Again, that's one of those names that you'd go, oh, I know what that does. Like Silverado, I guess, there's a new sheriff in town. Yeah. But, yeah.
Or the Subaru Sumo. I don't know what it does, though, but I can picture it.
Okay, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was small. Like I think it was like a K truck. Maybe our wonderful producer Chris Dupuy could pull it up on the an image of it on the screen here.
It's a micro van.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it's like a little camper van.
Yeah, like a little K van, right?
Yeah, I'll just show you real quick.
But yeah, so I'm like, it's called the Sumo. When you think of Sumo, you think of these hulking men.
I mean, it's a very plump little van, though.
But Jodi, it's like the size of this table.
Because it's micro. It was also known as the Domingo.
Yeah.
And the Libero.
All right.
Or the Combi. It was called the Combi in Belgium.
There you go.
Or in Sweden, it was the Columbus. With 2 S's.
The Combi, that's one of those like universal, we associate that a lot with like Volkswagen.
Yeah.
But that's like one of those in certain parts of the world, it's just like a universal term for like a, camper van with a pop.
That makes sense.
Pop top. Yeah.
Let's see. What else do we have here? The Gaz Volga.
What about, did we already say the Honda That's?
Oh, no, we haven't mentioned it. Just That's. THAT''S. Again with the apostrophes. For no reason. Such a weird one.
Yeah.
Let's see.
We already went over the Winky. Did we? Right?
Did we?
Maybe we didn't. The Mitsubishi Minica Winky.
What does the Winky mean? I have to look this one up.
It was like a tiny little hatchback. It was like this little.
It is. It is a little hatchback. It's funny looking though.
The Proton Tiara. Do you say Tiara or Tiara?
Tiara.
Tiara.
I think. Yeah. Did you know that the Honda Odyssey used to be called the La Great? Before it was the Odyssey, it was the La Great.
I mean, all right.
I mean, I don't know. It doesn't really say much, but it is confident.
Yeah. I always you remember the Odyssey back in the 90s had like, instead of sliding doors, it had like conventional.
My family had one of those.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was gold. Wow. Yeah, the exact same gold too. You can picture it.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
Anyway, there's so many funny ones.
Yeah.
The whole point of this episode is I wish car companies would have more fun with naming their vehicles again.
Yeah.
The car names today are just too serious. They don't really talk about
numbers
what
and letters.
Yeah, and I don't like that. It's so boring.
Yeah.
It also, I feel like the numerical ones also don't have staying power.
Unless it's like, BMW 3 Series, something like that. But yeah, it's like you're not, naming something like how many people, aside from the obvious, if you know that there's many of them in the lineup and it's sort of like a sliding scale of size. But like if you saw the QX80, not to pick on Infiniti, but like if you saw a QX80, you'd be, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Like
it doesn't say anything.
Exactly. Until okay, there's also a QX60 and whatever.
Yeah, but then you'd have to understand the whole naming conventions,
But then it's also stupid because now there's like a QX50. So it was like, in multiples of 20.
And now there's a 55.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Exactly.
Right? It's so weird. And that's the thing about these alphanumeric ones is that, especially with EVs coming in, automakers are having to like re-strategize their entire naming convention.
Audi for years. So the A4 was like the mainstay sedan that was a competitor of the BMW 3 Series and Mercedes C-Class. And now because Audi went in this direction with EVs being even numbers and gas-powered vehicles being odd numbers, the new A4 is an A5 because the odd numbers indicate that it's gas-powered. But to me, it's like nobody cares except for people in the Audi boardroom.
But they're also not advertising that. Like, how are people supposed to know? It doesn't make any sense.
Nobody's going like, oh, it's an odd number. It must be gas-powered.
It doesn't make sense. Even something like Cadillac, right? Yeah. Who is now, with all of their EVs, they're putting IQ names on it. So IQ is the designation for electric vehicles. Celestic. Or Vistic.
Yeah.
I just don't like it.
And then Escalade IQ.
I know, because they couldn't call it.
Well, because there's so much equity in the Escalade name,
That's very true,
But it's like you can't, like, it's so dumb to just be like, we're going to slap this on the back. Clearly, they made the decision to make all the vehicles some variation with IQ on the end, and then went, oh, what about the Escalade?
Yeah, and it seems like just like a lazy solution, right? I don't know. And even BMW, like even which used to signify direct injection, now is the signifier for EVs.
How about Jaguar launched the E-Pace,
which was not the electric version,
and then launched the I-Pace,
which was their electric version.
And when you asked them about it, it was like, well, no, because it's like a, it goes like F-Pace, like E-F, like, so it's a sequential thing and people will know. And it's like, no.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Like the only one, or the only two that make sense, again, going back to BMW, a 1 is smaller than a 2 is smaller than a 3. And then Mercedes, an A, a B, a C, an E, those make sense for the classes.
Yeah,
and
that
then
made
S
sense.
being at the top. But it's like, how are you just supposed to know that, the I-Pace is the electric one, which is being discontinued now?
Yep. Jaguar literally only sells one vehicle right now, and that is I think it's the F-Pace.
So
I don't even we are industry people, and even we don't understand what these cars are named. So I can't understand how like the general public can wrap their head around this. Bring back stuff like the Fantabula.
Yes.
I love those old retro names. Yeah. They're so cool.
What about you? I think this is the last one I'll say. And maybe it's in the works. So sorry, GM, if I'm spoiling the surprise. But it's like, okay, Buick, has got to be doing something. Where is the Electra?
I think it's coming.
Like, to me, that's a no-brainer.
So to me, okay, Buick is one of those few car companies that does have real names, but I don't understand the difference because they all start with EN. Envista, Enclave, Envision. I don't know which one's which.
And then,
but they're good names.
What's the Encore? And then came out with the Encore GX, which was slightly larger, and then discontinued the Encore and has kept the GX designation. So there's no, like, if you walked into the showroom, this is just like, and go figure, it's a GM brand. It's no different than walking into the Cadillac showroom and being like, Celestic, Vistic, Escalade IQ. It's like, Enclave. Oh, you need something smaller? There's the Encore. Oh, what's smaller than that? or nothing. But it's the Encore GX now.
It doesn't
Why
make
GX?
sense.
Nothing else is GX.
But what does it stand for? Nothing? It's just some letters?
Yeah.
I guess the X would mean all-wheel drive is my guess.
You can get front-wheel drive.
So yeah, that doesn't make sense to me.
No.
I don't like it.
Why not like the Encore-er? It was just a little more Encore, you know?
Or the Encore Buster.
Oh, I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know why that makes... I don't know. We should just bring these back.
Yeah.
They're so silly.
Yeah.
Encore Winky. Today, we have an Ask an Expert question from Lance, but before we get to that, here's a message from your friends at AutoTrader. Having trouble finding your perfect car at the perfect price? The answer is AutoTrader. Car prices are dropping across Canada, and AutoTrader has hundreds of thousands of new and used cars to choose from. Get a great deal on your perfect car by visiting AutoTrader today. This is a very, very simple question that came from Lance. Looking to sell a classic car, is this a good site to do so?
Wow.
Absolutely, 100% yes it is.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a very big misconception that like people think AutoTrader is only for used cars, but it's also for new cars as well. But vintage car shoppers like love AutoTrader for that reason. There's so many good vintage cars on there.
I mean, I don't know how vintage you would classify it, but when I sold my first gen Miata, my 95 Miata, I listed it on AutoTrader.
And you wrote such a lovely description for it.
I did. I got a lot of people being like, this was really nice and whatever. And
it's like you're a writer or something.
That's it. But yeah, Lance, throw it up there. Why not? It's free, man. Like you don't have to pay anything. Have your account. You don't even, that's the crazy thing. You don't even need to have like an account. You can just create it using your email address, create your posting, and throw it up on the site.
Yeah, and I think you're going to be advertising to the right audience, right? Like all of our friends are always scanning AutoTrader for cool old stuff.
And here we are talking about it on AutoTrader.
Now we're going to have to rebrand our entire podcast, and then the general public is going to be so confused.
Why don't we just call this Own the Road with AutoTrader GX?
Funky Cat. AutoTrader Funky Cat. That's the new name of our podcast.
Own the Road with AutoTrader IQ.
Oh, we could have so much fun with this. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Thank you all for joining us on this ridiculous episode. We hope you really liked it. If you have questions that you would like to ask Dan or I, you could email expert@trader.ca. But that wraps up this episode.
This was fun.
Drive safe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.